Thank you very much, everybody, for coming to what will hopefully be the first of many human-computer shared tasks at NAACL and affiliated workshops. So we're going to have a demonstration of a question-answering system on a particular kind of question-answering task called Quiz Bowl. Quiz Bowl is a common trivia game played among academic institutions in English-speaking countries. Unlike traditional batch QA systems where you get the entire question, the point of Quiz Bowl is to be able to interrupt the question before it is finished. And the questions are structured in such a way that the earlier you answer the question, it shows your depth of knowledge. So if you can answer a question early, you are presumably smarter than your opponent. So we ran a shared task. We had submissions of 11 systems. Our system did not win. It was actually another system that won, and we'll be hearing about that in a second. So we had 11 systems, computer systems, face off, and we're lucky enough to have them face off against one of the best academic teams assembled in the United States. And we'll be introducing them shortly. But before we introduce our human contestants, we'll first have the winner of the shared task system come up and speak a little bit about his work.
So hello, everyone. My name is Iku Yamada. And I present Ushia, question answering system for Quiz Bowl. So first, let me start with our little background briefly. And we are a Tokyo-based startup company working on NLP. And we are currently working on entity linking and question answering. And participated in several recent competitions, including this year's task. Okay. So maybe I can skip this slide. And we use two models to answer the questions. The first one is QB ranker, which selects the most relevant answer from the answer candidates in the shared tasks dataset. So from the relatively limited number of answer candidates. And the second one is Wikipedia ranker, which selects an answer from popular Wikipedia entries using word matching features. So because most of the questions are answered using QB ranker, so we only explain QB ranker today. So here's the overview of our approach. And in summary, we combine convolutional neural net and traditional information retrieval-based measures, such as BM25 using random forest. First, we generate candidate answers using top-N results of a search engine that indexes Wikipedia articles of answer candidates. So here, we generate a lot of candidates to maintain the recall. And then, okay, so we generate machine learning features using these two modules. And we use random forest to learn the ranking function. So we assign a point-wise relevance score to each of the candidate answers. And the model reads the question sequentially and buzzes an answer if relevance score surpasses a threshold. Okay. So this is our neural network model. I think this is very simple and straightforward model. And first, we map words and candidate answers into a same continuous vector space, so embedding, using skipgram trained on Wikipedia text and anchors. And the question text is encoded into a vector Q using basic sentence CNN with max pooling and dropouts. Then, given a question vector Q and an answer vector A, so the probability of the answer being correct is computed using the softmax. And the model is trained on the dataset using Adam Optimizer. And so as I explained earlier, we mainly use CNN-based features and information retrieval-based features to train the random forest. For IR-based features, we use BM25 and TF-IDF-based matching scores between the question text and various texts, such as past questions and candidate answers Wikipedia page, paragraphs and sentences, and paragraphs and sentences that contain links to the candidate answers Wikipedia page. We also use some features such as binary value representing if the question text contains the candidate answer, the number of words, number of sentences, and so on. Okay? So as a result, our system successfully solved 64 questions and obtained first place on the leaderboard. Thank you.
Okay, so now for the main event. So the way this is going to work is we will have 30 questions. In the Quizable community, these are called toss-up questions, and these can be interrupted at any time by a player. And the human team that the winner of our shared task will face off against is the California NASAT team. So the way this works is that each state in the United States gets to choose a collection of players that represents the best academic performers from their state. And we were very fortunate that California's team came entirely from the San Diego region, so they were able to be here today. Let's invite them up. So first, we have Vincent Dorr from La Jolla High School, who is a graduating senior who will be going to Georgetown next year. Next up, we have Rahul Kayal, a senior at Westview High School, who will be majoring in computer science or engineering. Next up, we have Kian Yu from Rancho Bernardo, who is interested in English and political science. And then finally, we have James Malouf, a junior from La Jolla. Mohit will be reading the questions, and what I will do is I will advance the questions one word at a time by pressing a button on this laptop. When the system decides to answer, it will answer. And the humans can do the same thing.
All right, so before we start, just wanted to go over the scoring really quick. And if either the humans or the computer gets each question right before a certain point in the question, they get 15 points. If they get it right after this mark, they get 10 points. And if they interrupt me while I'm reading the question and they give a wrong answer, they get -5 points. All right, so with that, we'll start. Question 1. The speaker of this poem wishes that he had a beaker full of the warm south so that he could leave the world unseen. This poem compares a melody to that heard by Ruth, who cried amidst the alien
Oh, to a nightingale.
Yeah, that's correct. All right. Number 2. Jean Goutin was a military commander of these people who were the target of a relief effort that occupied the Isle de Ré and was led by the Duke of Buckingham. The affair of the placards was put on by these people.
Huguenots.
Yep, that is correct for 15 points. All right. Though Great Britain owed this country millions of pounds for grain exports it made during World War II, it was able to withhold payments via the terms of the Rocca-Runciman Treaty. During the Great Depression, this country experienced the infamous decade. The Casa Rosada is the traditional...
Argentina.
Yep, that is correct for 10 points. Go humans. At its premiere, the librettist of this opera portrayed a character who asks for a glass of wine with his dying wish. That character in this opera is instructed to ring some bells to summon his love. At its beginning, a man who claims to have killed a serpent has a padlock put on his mouth.
Turndo.
That is incorrect, -5. Put on his mouth because of his lying. The plot of this opera concerns a series of tests that Tamino must undergo to rescue Tamina from Sarastro. For 10 points, name this Wolfgang Mozart opera titled for an enchanted wood...
The Magic Flute.
Yep, that is correct. All right. Number 5. As part of this initiative, a high-speed rail line called the Metroliner was built between New York and Washington by the newly formed Department of Transportation. This initiative led to the creation of community action agencies in low-income areas.
Great Society.
That is correct for 15 points. All right. A man who was fomenting rebellion against this monarch was turned over to this king by Lupus II of Gascony. This king solidified his possessions by creating the Spanish March. This ruler perpetrated the massacre of Verdun, thus encouraging Widukind and the Saxons.
Charlemagne.
Yep, that is also correct for 10 points. All right. The right side of a painting by this artist depicts the late former wife, the current wife, and the daughter of the Burgermeister of Basel. That painting by this man shows Mary and the infant Jesus in front of a scallop shell. This...
Hans Holbein the Younger.
Yes, that is correct for 15 points. Okay. All right, toss up 8. Primary sclerosing cholangitis primarily causes damage to this organ. An alanine aminotransferase test assesses the functionality of this organ. The canals of Hering transport substances from this organ, and it is the site of the breakdown of...
Liver.
Yep, that is 15 points as well. Okay, toss up 9. Heinrich von Furstenberg died in combat against troops from this country who won the Battle of Dornach to defeat the Swabian League. The 3 leagues were active in this country, and it was where the Koppel... Yep, that is 15 points for the humans.
Feel free to applaud. Don't be shy.
All right. Number 10. In a scene from this novel, a drunken man drops his squalling and kicking child over the banister, but is caught by a man who could not show a blanker countenance than a miser who had lost 5,000 pounds. A character in this novel overhears the woman he loves saying that it would degrade her to marry him, running away before she goes on to relate how much she loves him. Its frame story is presented to Mr. Lockwood while he stays at...
Wuthering Heights.
Yep, that is 10 points. All right, number 11. This artist used only the colors of black, yellow, and white in his painting The Deep, and those colors appear alongside shades of red and orange in his painting ironically titled Blue Poles. Yep, that is 15 points. Good job. A militia in this state continually beat drums so that a royal agent could not be heard over the ruckus. A colony in this state was established by John Davenport and Theophilus Eaton. The Saybrook colony was founded here.
New Hampshire.
That is incorrect, -5. To which a group of dissenters traveled under the guidance of Thomas Hooker. The Fundamental Orders was a governing document outlined in this state, and a copy of that charter was supposedly hidden from Edmund Andros in an oak tree. For 10 points, name the state where colonies were established at New Haven and Hartford.
Connecticut.
Yep, that is 10 points. Oh, no computer fans here. Okay. John Cox, Stephen Ross, and Mark Rubinstein developed a model to evaluate the cost of these entities that is based on the binomial theorem. Robert Merton won a Nobel Prize for his work on a theorem about these entities. They can be classified as American or European depending on whether they can be fulfilled at any time. The Black-Scholes formula prices them. For 10 points, name these financial instruments that give the holder the choice to exercise a contract at a later date and that come in put and call varieties.
Options.
Yep, that is 10 points. In a story by this author, Charlie is saved from a shipwreck by a Polynesian man who helps him become a captain and a plantation owner. This author of The Heathen wrote about a Chichaco, or newcomer, who ignores the warnings of the locals by traveling to Henderson Creek in weather that is 70...
Conrad?
That is incorrect, -5. In weather that is 75 degrees below zero. This writer used the Alaskan gold rush as the setting of To Build a Fire, and as the backdrop for a novel about the sled dog Buck. For 10 points, name this author of The Call of the Wild.
Jack London.
Yep, that is correct. This monarch agreed to give his vote for Holy Roman Emperor to Francis, the Duke of Lorraine, via the terms of the Treaty of Dresden. He ordered the construction of the Sanssouci Palace, where he often separated himself from his wife, Elizabeth Christine. This king won the Battle of Malwitz, after which he was able to seize Silesia from Austria.
So we're at the halfway point, so let's check the score. We have humans at 70, computer at 100, anybody's game. Any substitutions or, all right.
All right, we'll continue then. Number 16. The protagonist of a novel by this author is evicted from the Bridge Inn and is talked into becoming a school janitor by a character whose role is often translated as the council chairman. A character created by this writer is surprised to discover that he no longer likes the taste of milk, but enjoys... Yep, that is 10 points. Number 17. The Nila prayer is only said during the conclusion of this holiday.
Rosh Hashanah.
No, that's incorrect. -5. Right religion, though. In a service during this holiday, a priest randomly selects one of the two goats to be of the Lord, while the author is given a red ribbon for Azazel. The evening before this holiday, a prayer called All Vows, or the Kol Nidre, is read. It occurs on the 10th day of Tishrei, and its veneration of the number 5 is seen in that there are 5 prayer services rather than the traditional 3. For 10 points, name the Sabbath of Sabbaths, the Jewish Day of Atonement.
Yom Kippur.
Yep. Number 18. A character in this poem is told that he's in the animal soup of time. Aside from a single question mark, the only punctuation marks in its second section are exclamation points. A reading from a draft of this poem was the highlight of the 6th gallery reading.
Howell.
Yep, that is 15 points. This novel relates the story of a tortoise that convinced the birds to give it feathers so that it could fly to the heavens. Yeah, that is 15 points. Good job. All right, number 20. 11 questions left. A condition caused by an example of this entity can be diagnosed by the presence of 14-3-3 protein in the cerebrospinal fluid. The replication of these entities can be explained... Yep, that is 15 points as well. And the humans take the lead. Okay, number 21. The subject of a poem by this author had never heard of a world where promises were kept, or where one could weep because another wept. This poet described an object that depicts an artificial wilderness and a sky like lead in his poem, The Shield of Achilles. Yeah, that's correct. 10 points. Along with Austin Gerritsen, this president averted a railroad strike by negotiating for an 8-hour workday in what would become the Adamson Act. He appointed his advisor, Louis Brandeis, to the Supreme Court, and he called...
Woodrow Wilson.
Yep, that is 15 points. A character in this biblical book is appalled to see an altar written with the words, "To the unknown God." And another character has a vision of a great sheet of all manner of four-footed beasts of the earth, wild beasts, creeping things, and fowls of the air. The couple, Aquila and... Yep, that is 15 points. For these devices, Haitz's law was designed as a specific version of Moore's law. The single avalanche photon type of these devices can be used to measure noise in hardware devices. Edison's law was used in the development of the first of these devices, which was constructed using a vacuum tube.
Lasers?
That is incorrect, -5. Today, their most common type consists of a semiconductor connected to a p-n junction. For 10 points, name these devices which only allow current to flow primarily in one direction and that come in light-emitting varieties.
Diode.
Yep, that is 10 points. All right. This man sometimes names the residue theorem. A distribution usually named for this man has no defined mean or variance. The conditions for a complex function to be holomorphic are given by...
Cauchy.
Yep, that's 15 points. All right, 5 questions left. Close game. This man is featured in the Thomas Nast cartoon Taking a Rest, which puns on a marching song in its subtitle, The Watch on This Person. He is depicted departing a ship in a political cartoon by John Tenniel titled Dropping the Pilot. He claimed that the great questions of the time will not be resolved by...
Bismarck?
Yep, that is 15 points.
Yeah, blood and iron, yeah.
All right, number 27. In an Orphic tradition, this god fathered a figure whose heart was consumed by the Titans before the birth of humankind, Zagreus. He disguised himself as Pluto to sleep with Persephone, leading to the birth of Melano, and an oracle to this deity was found at Dodona.
Poseidon.
Nope, that's -5. Some stories claim that he was raised by a goat named Amalthea after his mother swapped him for a rock so that he would not be eaten by his father, Cronus. For 10 points, name this counterpart of the Roman Jupiter, the chief god of the Greek pantheon.
Zeus.
Yep, that's 10 points. This scientist names a constant that is equal to Loschmidt's constant times RT over P and is equal to the Faraday constant over the elementary charge.
Avogadro's.
Yep, that is 15 points. Yeah, that may have sealed the game. There's 2 questions left. A story set in this country ends with the narrator Pycon being released from prison and discovering he has a son who resembles him. The stories in the collection The Burning Plain are set here. The same 6 lines open and close.
Mexico.
Yep, that is also 15 points. And the last question. In a book based on this novel, Arabella vows to wed cousin Glanville after throwing herself into the Thames, mirroring this novel's 4 judges of River who force the protagonists to declare an oath. Charlotte Lennox wrote a female version of this novel. An attempt to recreate this novel through a line-by-line immersion is undertaken by... That is incorrect, -5. Pierre Menard in a Jorge Luis Borges short story. The title character of this novel is the subject of pranks by the Duke and the Duchess and imagines a peasant girl to be the legendary Dulcinea. For 10 points, name this novel by Miguel...
Don Quixote.
Yep, that is correct, and that's the end of the game. Good job, guys.
All right. So would the developer of the system come up and shake hands with the human team? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, good game. All right, so thank you very much to our human team. If you think that your system could do better, please submit to our next shared task, and hopefully we'll do something like this again at either ACL or ICML next year. So this concludes our human-computer question answering workshop. Thank you all very much for your participation, your great research, and your enthusiasm for the shared task. And I hope to see you again at our next iteration, where perhaps we will have seen today the last time that humans beat a computer question answering system.
The organizers.
Thanks to Mohit and Hal Dalmay.